Cutdown day is looming, and we have the Chiefs 53 on the defensive side for you right now on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. This is Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thanks for making this your first listen. Check out another Locked On show for your next one, whether it's somebody else in the AFC West or elsewhere. We thank you for being here. You can get all the breaking news and our stuff on 816-357-8781. That is our text line. We are kicking off season number 9 here on this show with me and Chris Clark, my partner, over at KCChiefsCorner.com. You can go get all of his work there. Mine's at NFL33.com and RGRFootball.com. 9 years together, 15 to 20 years, each of us separately covering this team in print, which I apologize for anyone who used to read my articles, and podcasting as well as
apologize to me too.
Yeah, all my former editors. I appreciate you all, starting with Chris. A lot here to help with. And we got the first half out of the way. If you missed the offensive breakdown of the 53-man projection that we gave you yesterday, go back and check that out. It'll be tagged up here in this show. But today we are on to the defense. Maybe more question marks here. We're going to run it down for you. These linebackers could be volatile. They might not be the same 53 that are initially there that could be in week 3. It could change dramatically. We'll get to them coming up later in the show. We will get to the D-line shortage, and you could pop your head up out of a gopher hole and not find any defensive linemen if you're not close. That's how thin they are, and we have a plan for that. But we start at the back of the defense with maybe the most juxtaposition in terms of what they've done in the past for this group. Now, to review, 26 on offense for Chris yesterday, 25 on offense for me. That means he has 24 selections. I have 25. Let's break it down. I kept only 4 safeties at the back of the defense, including Cook and Hicks, who I think are the top 2. Chammari and CRW at both nickel kind of like hybrid safeties. Those are the 4 that I kept. I have Edwards and Melvin Williams going on to the practice squad. What do you have?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that those are the 4 that are going to be there. Hicks, Conner, Cooks, and CRW are going to be your safeties. I believe they're only going to keep 4. Edwards is a little bit interesting because I think Matt mentioned that he might have a little bit of an injury, so the question whether or not he'll be even available for the practice squad, but I don't know what the injury is specifically, so possible that he could go there. It's going to be tough to figure out what they're going to do at the safety position, because if you would have asked me before OTA started, I would have told you that during OTAs even, Conner and CRW are probably going to be corners, and both of them are now listed as safeties, and it's just completely flipping everything that we thought.
Well, and let's put the positive side of it. Yeah, they flipped, but that's because they're both versatile. And
yep.
I don't agree with Steve Spagnuolo and Dave Merritt pushing Chammari Conner to the nickel. I think that's a liability. I don't think it's his best role. And I think in the end, it will hurt them.
Week 1 especially.
Yeah, absolutely. But they have that ability. Both he and CRW, who I think is well-earned onto this roster, even if he was a corner still, I would have him listed on this roster because his versatility, his playmaking ability, and what I think is going to be a good second year for him, all have him on the roster without doubt. The Edwards thing is interesting, and I think they need to keep another guy on the practice squad. I think they prefer Williams. We'll see if that's the way that it works out.
Yeah, and they usually want to go with a guy like Deion Bush. Obviously, he's not going to be available because he's out for the year. So is Edwards going to be a guy that they can bring up and use as a special teamer? I don't see it. So to me, it would make sense it would be a young guy that can come up and help with special teams, because more than likely that's what you're going to need.
Yeah, and let me correct myself. It's Major Williams, not Melvin. Melvin is Smith. We'll talk about him in a couple of minutes. So we each have 4. So you're down to 20 spots. I'm down to 21. When we get to the cornerbacks, been a lot of back and forth, a ton of back and forth. And unless something happens in a trade situation, this is what I have. The top 3 in McD, Fulton, Watson. Then I have Noel, Nazi, and I have Josh Williams on this initial 53 for the cutdowns, thinking that A, they don't get a trade done, and B, when it balances out, you want 10 DBs, especially for special teams, and I think he is the next man.
I'm with you on all of those, actually. And Josh Williams, I don't think really deserves to necessarily be on the roster and is probably the most likely to be traded of anybody on the defensive side of the ball, I would think. So to me, that would make a lot of sense that he may not be on this roster. But as of right now, I have 6 DBs, mainly because you still don't know what you have in Nazi because he's been injured. And Christian Fulton played a lot and looked okay when he played, but played a ton in preseason game number 3. Don't think that that's necessarily because they view him as a lesser talent. I think it's just they're trying to get him snaps because he didn't get any, and they're trying to get him ready for week 1.
Yeah, I agree. I do expect him to round in shape here as we come along. Jalen Watson, I thought, looked pretty dang good in preseason game number 3. So the question becomes that injury to Nazi. I think Noel's making progress, a little over aggressive. Love that. I'd rather tell a guy to slow down and then he has to get going. So I'm comfortable there. The question becomes is if you do trade away Joshua, who I do think is in the discussion, a lot of DB need around the league. Do you then try, is it a simple, are you happy with just a pick in return? Is it, I got to have another player and a player at a DB position? I don't think so. I think you can go with 4 and 5 and only have 9 DBs on the game day rosters for now, knowing that you have Kevin Knowles and Melvin Smith as your backup practice squad type corners. I think we saw enough of them from special teams. If they had to pull them up, they'd be okay.
Yeah, and Knowles showed a lot on special teams. Look at what his extra point block. I mean, that it's all about timing. It's all about execution, and those can win games. Kansas City had a game that won, not specifically from that position, but that they had one that won a game. So something to watch there. I do agree with you. I think those are probably the practice squad guys, and I do think that if they trade Williams, it doesn't necessarily mean that they end up with 6 corners. They may end up with another defensive tackle, which we'll talk about in the next segment. They could end up with another running back, which we've already talked about, that they need to maybe consider a trade for. So there's a couple of different ways that could go. And you mentioned this yesterday, but we didn't really dive into it. But since we're talking about trades, you have to wonder if the trade, if potentially they could trade Jason Brownlee for anything, could they trade him for, again, defensive tackle? That's where I think that they need their help. And we're going to talk about that in a moment.
Yeah, I have to agree. On this side of the ball, the number 1 acquisition would be a defensive tackle. So what does that look like? Where are the groups? What is Omar Norman Lott? Next. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for you football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. It's all here for just 24 hours. FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions, the season-long ones. So whether you're calling out your MVP or eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown a Super Bowl champion right now before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So take a flyer. Get Mahomes in the MVP race. Hell, throw Kelsey in there too. It can't hurt, right? If you think the Chiefs are going back to it, you might as well put your money on them now and crown your champion in August. You might take a couple others as well. There's all kinds of action you can get into. Visit FanDuel app today and get started planning your futures bets right now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only at FanDuel. Play your game. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about what our listeners want and what makes our podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us exactly what you like, what you don't, and answer the questions about advertising, etc. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey entered for a chance to win $100 in Amazon gift cards. We would appreciate it. That's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. And you can find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. There's a lot to go on here as the Chiefs make their preparations, and probably the most difficult and most projection-based position group on this roster is the defensive line. Yes, you have decisions to make at DB, but this is the place where we can see them making an acquisition, amongst all the trades that could happen. Because when it came down to it, I had to weigh Nico Remigio versus Marlon Tuipulotu. Just comparing guy to guy, not necessarily at their positional depth chart. And this is what I came down to on defense. At the inside, I came down to Jones, Norman Lott, Tillery, and Pinnell. That's it. There's only 4 that earn their way on the roster for me on this one. I think it's difficult. I have Tuipulotu, Farrell, and Lovett come back. I'm sorry, not because I misspelled that one. Those 3 guys as possibilities to practice squad. I'm not sure they all make it, but I think Tuipulotu would be the next man up at the defensive tackle position, but I don't think he's on the roster initially.
3. I got 3 defensive tackles.
Wow.
Jones,
Okay.
Omar, Norman Lott, and Tillery. And the reason I do that is because I think that they're going to do like I talked on Monday's show. I think they're going to play roster games, and I think Pennell's going to get cut and be brought back the next day. So as a roster projection, I don't think he makes the initial roster, but I think he comes back within a day or two, and they put somebody else on injured reserve. And I think it's because they're going to try to keep, and I know we're talking about linebackers next, so I won't talk about that, but specifically a linebacker that I think they want to put on short-term IR, and they need the kind of space to kind of make that move.
Yeah, and so this is another scenario that Mike Pennell is a friend of the program, been here a long time, right? Like they're going to come to him, they're going to say, hey, Mike, we got this problem. This guy won't get through waivers. You good if we just release you and we'll sign you back the next day? No problem. Don't go anywhere. Mike probably doesn't have much value outside of Kansas City, to be honest, anyway, right?
Yep.
So that is the same treatment you could get from Tanya, and allows you to have that cushion where the initial waiver claim doesn't go in and you don't have to battle for losing a player. I think that makes a lot of sense. But man, they got to get him back before week 1.
No, absolutely. And here's the crazy thing. He may end up not being on the I wonder if he ends up on the active roster anyway. And it's not because I don't think they like Mike Pennell. It's because if they make an addition, where are they going to go short elsewhere?
Well, that's the question. But the Chargers are going to run at you. You got to have run defenders.
And I think Derek Gnoddy is going to be the guy that they're going to be looking at. I think that they're going to go and try to get him from the Jets. I don't know if it's going to be a trade. That would make the most sense considering the fact that you don't want to risk him going through and getting picked up on waivers, although I don't know that there will be many people interested. But I think that if you're going to bring him back, you do a trade and you take the contract. You have the money for it. Maybe you get Pennell back and you go short another position, but that's the problem is you have all these different guys that you want on the roster, and it's just hard. Maybe you go short at defensive end and you only go with 4.
Did I miss something? I thought Gnoddy had enough accrued seasons that he would not be exposed to waivers.
That may be true. So maybe you would have to. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Okay, he is 29 years old. This is season 7 for him.
Yep, you're right.
No, he has 7. So okay,
yeah.
So that would be something that if released, they could just go sign. Okay,
yeah, if released, but I don't know. Is he going to get? I mean,
they traded for 2 guys at his position.
True.
I can't see that he's making their roster.
That's true. So
and by the way,
that's
pissed off about Harrison being traded to Jets. Just wanted to put that out there. He's one of the trade candidates I was eyeing.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of them.
Okay, so we have 3 and 4, respectively, the tackle position. So that leaves the edge, the other half of the D-line position. I have, obviously, your starters in Karlaftis and Dana. And the fact that Mike Dana is a starter tells you something here, because Mike is a rotational player and could go inside half the time. He is not an uber pass rush threat, but he plays hard for this team, and I like having him here. Amenahue, Gelati as the backups, and I think we've seen heavy rotation there. And when I had to make the choice, I elected to put Malik Herring onto this roster because he, again, can play inside for you if you need to. They've had him for a while. They trust him. And I think there's more stability there than there was for Tuipulotu, who was the other option for me. How do you see it?
Same guys. I would love to argue with you, but the reality is, and this is why I felt comfortable going into 3 defensive tackles, because you have Amenahue, Dana, Karlaftis, and Herring, who can all break down inside and play inside at times. So you have those guys. I'm not saying you don't need another defensive tackle. You absolutely do. And maybe, another option is if they have to get really creative, you put Mike Pennell on the practice squad and you elevate him week 1.
Yeah,
that's another potential option. Lots of different things that they could do, but I do think that those are the 5 guys that you're going to be looking at. So I only have 5 between defensive ends and defensive tackles. You have 9. So Or sorry, I have 5 defensive ends, 3 defensive tackles, so a total of 8. You have 9 total between the two.
Correct. And that's the difference. Acquisition heavy could be at that position group, so we understand that we could end up at 9 or 10 after it's all said and done. Anyway, so
Quite literally heavy, huh?
Yeah, quite literally. 330 plus. Yeah, I'd be looking for that. A little explosion. Exactly. It goes a long way. Now, that said, this tinkering all goes towards playing defense and understanding that the AFC West, the entirety of the AFC West is coming for you on the ground. I called those guys out on it. If you guys get to see, make sure that you make time to see the AFC West preview from Locked On, where you had all the AFC West hosts and everybody tried to pile on. I fought them off. It was like Jon Snow. In the end, I'm the last one coming out.
You know what I love about that, though? They are going to attack via the ground. And great. Go ahead. Try it. If you can't keep up with Kansas City and Kansas City gets a 2-score lead, you're not going to be able to do the ground game.
Right.
Kansas City's defense is going to be set up to defend the pass because, generally speaking, the teams that they're going to be going against in the playoffs and the Super Bowl potentially are going to be pass-heavy teams. Is it possible a run-heavy team gets there? Yeah, it's possible. But the reality is we saw what Kansas City's offense is capable of, and I do think it means that they're going to score a ton of points this year. And I'm not going to say that Reed is going to do what I wish that he would do, which is put his foot on people's necks at times, because that's not the type of guy he is. But this offense is going to have the ability to score points and score them quickly, because they're going to be, 6 of 13 throws, I think Patrick Mahomes that had downfield. That makes a big difference. And it changes what you, in all that to say, it changes what you have to do on defense and how you have to be able to play defense. That's the whole reason I went there.
It does. And nobody is more happy to see Patrick Mahomes go downtown and build leads than the linebacker level. There's 3 of them that are shoo-ins. Everything else is an absolute guess, except we have the answer for you next. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner. You can feel the buzz, especially after the preseason games are wrapped. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, building, rebuilding their championship squads. And if you haven't joined a league yet, now's the time. It's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league like me. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features to make the game even better. This season, on September 4th, the kickoff. Now's the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers you so many fun ways to compete. If you want more ways to play, you can try it right now. The brand new Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week from the league, and there's only one left standing at the end of the season. If you want to play instantly with friends, you can try the new Draft with Friends mode. It's a group think. Prefer the classics, you can get back to the normal crew, head-to-head, private league, no problem. If you don't have a crew, you can just join a public league. Get in there and mix it up with anybody available. The NFL season kicks off on September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Folks, check out KC Chiefs Corner. Check out NFL33.com and RGRfootball.com. That's where we are when we're not here. We would appreciate that very much. And everything goes into more detail. And the detail that we have to put in the linebacker discussion this year is maybe more so than we've had in all of Andy Reid's regime, or Steve Spagnuolo's, if you want to be more precise about it. In the end, I have 25 on defense. You have 24 on defense. It came down to me who can actually play snaps of quality on the defensive side and give a special teams contribution. So I ended up going 6 right now on the initial 53, subject to turnover and trade. That could change. But obviously, Bolton, Tranquill, Chanel, your starters, not a question. The next best linebacker on this roster is Jeffrey Bassa. I am convinced of that. Steve Spagnuolo does not agree with me, but that's the way it is. After that, Jack Cochran, who does have a significant injury currently and could be one of those guys that has to go to the injured list with a designation to return. He is an asterisk on my list. And I finished it up with Cam Jones, who I think special teams contribution is there. And I thought he improved during the preseason. How do you see the linebackers?
6. I have the same except for Jones. I don't have Cam Jones. Cam Jones has been on this roster. I think it's potentially possible he'll end up being that guy. And you kind of mentioned this, but I will say this again. I think this is where they make their extra move. I think this is why they maybe cut a Mike Pennell so they can put a Cochran specifically on IR the day after cuts. Because if you do it before, it counts as one of your designated return. And regardless of whether or not he can actually play defensive snaps for you, they trust Jack Cochran in his special teams play, and they absolutely want him there. So he's going to be on this roster. It's just a question as to where he's going to be on this roster. So to me, I think that he initially makes it, but I do think it's potentially that he goes to IR and misses the first month after day one. And then I don't know. That's the big question is, do you end up staying at 5 linebackers? I would think you probably do, but my 6th linebacker right now is Cooper McDonald. I understand Cam Jones has played more and played earlier. I just think that they can get Cam Jones on the practice squad. They could probably get Cooper McDonald on the practice squad. So to me, I went with a younger guy and somebody that's at least made some plays. That sack I thought was pretty impressive in preseason game number 3. Yes, you have to take who he's playing against as a grain of salt, but he's been consistently talked about when you start talking about training camp and started showing out in OTAs and continued it during training camp. So I think he has a chance of making this roster, and that's who I went with as my 6th.
He's a heck of a football player as an athlete. He's not very well polished as a linebacker yet, and that's why I left him on the practice squad. I do think that he will be able to get back to that point, but he's a work in progress from every definition that I can see on film. Maybe they believe, as you do, that there's less risk in keeping him, but I don't think he makes a contribution like Jones does on special teams. So I think this comes down to Dave Toe's influence. That's why I went the direction I had. But I think we both agree whoever of those guys isn't on the 53, they want back on the practice squad. And in my mind, that also includes Christensen, who's been there before, and Brandon George. I think they would like to keep all 3 of whoever those guys are onto the practice squad so they have pull-up numbers.
Well, and the bigger question, and this is where it gets really tough because you start talking about how many you're going to keep at different positions. And this is why you went with 4 running backs versus maybe 5 running backs, because you are feeling like you have to keep 6 linebackers. And part of it is, okay, if you don't keep a guy like Carson Steele and you go down to only 3 running backs, do you keep a 7th linebacker? Do you keep an extra defensive end? Or defensive end or defensive tackle, another defensive end, defensive tackle. That's the kind of thing that you have to start thinking about, because if you take Carson Steele off, then you have to replace his special team snaps. And generally speaking, you're not going to have a fullback on the roster at that point. So generally speaking, you're going to be looking at that level of player being a linebacker of some sort.
Possibly.
So, it's just one of those things. It's amazing how much you don't think that maybe, an Elijah Mitchell is competing against a Cooper McDonald, or, a Carson Steele is competing against Cam Jones, or, stuff like that. But that's when you start talking about the roster and the minutia and the guys that you're going to be your starters, that are going to be filling in and being your core special teams guys, they have to be very good at special teams. They have to be core guys that are going to be playing all 4 of those special teams roles in some way, shape, or form, and give you something. And then you can figure out, okay, are we going to be able to keep them on the team at their roster position? Because that it all plays into it. It's just crazy how this roster comes together.
It certainly is. As we discussed yesterday, 3 specialists in Bucker, Ariza, and Winchester, not a question here. As you look at the defense as a whole and where you've gone with it versus the projection that we could see for week 1, or maybe even more, especially week 2, after a veteran's guarantee is passed, and there might be more signings at that point. Your 26 offense, 24 defense, I'm even at 25-25. If we wait for week 2, do you think that changes significantly?
I don't think it changes significantly. Obviously, injuries can change everything, but I don't think it changes significantly. I think they have a pretty good idea of who they want and how they're going to be on this roster. It's just going to be a matter of can they get everybody on the roster that they want to have on the roster. And the one thing that I will say would throw a wrinkle in everything that we haven't talked about, and since we have a little bit of time here, we can discuss. any chance that they say we'll be okay with we're going to keep Carson Steele, we're going to keep Brashard Smith, and we're going to have Thornton as our punt returner, and we're going to trade away Nico Remigio?
I don't think that there's much of a chance of that. I think most teams for that role would be more comfortable sticking with the guy that they had in camp.
Yep.
Making an acquisition for a returner, I think, is maybe one of the more risky rolls of the dice that a team could make at that point in the season.
So in your mind, then Sky Moore was traded for because of his wide receiver prowess versus his. Okay, no, that's fine. I'm literally asking because I'm just sitting here looking at this going, that's, we're talking defense and I get that, but you talk specialists, and when you start talking specialists, punt returner, kick returners in there, and when we start looking at the roster math, 7 wide receivers is something Kansas City has not done very often in their time under Andy Reid.
Now, don't get me wrong. In Sky's case, they know what they have in him as a punt returner. I don't think they went to get him as a punt returner. I think the reason they made the trade is because they are so shorthanded at receiver. Not that I think he's going to offer them a huge upside. I hope that a new scenery will help him, but I really do think he is more in that slash utility player, because I think they want to give him handoffs out of the backfield. I think they want to do jet stuff with him. I don't think it's necessarily a downfield route running role that they have in mind for Sky Moore. If they do, more power to him. I hope it works out. But I think it's more about they know he can return kicks, and they think that they can make him a gadget.
Yeah, just make sure you're not trying to throw him the ball and have him catch it over his shoulder.
Let's not do that. Or do it. I don't care. See you, 49ers.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'll talk to Croc about that. We'll see how he feels. Now, if there's anything that you are amiss about or feel that we have misrepresented or just wrong about, make sure you leave your comments down below there. We didn't argue as much today as we did yesterday, but we do have differences. We'd like to know what you think of them, and we would like to have feedback. Now, this is going to be an ongoing thing. As we recorded this over the weekend, there may have already been some changes. If you were seeing that, don't despair. We're going to give you updates anytime anything major happens and there is an acquisition that we need to know about. This could continue through the week after cutdowns as well. Every scenario that Chris has mentioned about stashing, etc., back and forth means that there will be corresponding moves after the fact. So we will have it for you all week long. Matt Derrick will join us tomorrow, and we'll break it down through the end of the week. Thank you for your time. We very much appreciate you. We are going to be seeing you on and off for the next few days as the Chiefs get ready for game number 1 and the Chargers, that trip to Sao Paulo. Have a great one. We'll talk to you tomorrow.